Hey guys, welcome to Foster Change, where we talk about all things life, parenting, and child welfare related. I'm here with Pastor Shayla, and she is a former foster mom and a fierce advocate, and she has experienced placement loss. So we are going to unpack that a little bit. She's going to share her journey, and we'll just kind of discuss what it looks like to go through grief when you lose a placement in the child welfare system.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely my story. You know, do you want me just to share a little bit about that journey and that history? So we received a placement when he was 5 days old, right out of the hospital, like into the shelter, and we went to pick him up. And we had him with us for, I don't remember, 16, 18 months, something like that. And in the process, just like any foster care case and any, dealing with the system or parents or any of those things, there was a lot of back and forth and unknowns. At one point in the case, the goal was changed to adoption, and adoption was put on the table. And I think at that point, you go into foster care and like they tell you over and over and again, the goal of foster care is reunification.
Always.
The goal of foster care is reunification. And that was always playing in my mind. And I think when that goal got adoption added to it, man, my heart was just like, oh, okay, this is my child,
It changes your mentality a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh man, now this is real. This could be my forever child, all of this. In our case, we had a mom and a dad. The mom ended up not taking the help that was offered to her as far as addiction counseling and all of those different things. So she actually saw our foster son twice and then no longer, was there. And so in our son's case, it was his dad, and his dad came into his life at about 4 months old.
Okay.
And was just trying to figure it out and get things together. He had a really rough life. He was struggled with addiction and homelessness and all of these different things, a disability. He was legally blind, like lots of different factors that were playing into this case. And there was one point, so the goal was changed to adoption, but then it's like as soon as that happened, I think maybe his awareness was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose this child if I don't get it together. And so he made a really huge effort to, walk his process, the case plan that was laid out for him. He made a lot of effort to get his life together, to go to counseling, to do all of the things that he needed to do to get to a place to get that child back. And so at the end of the day, our son was reunified with his biological dad. Right. And I don't think I'll ever forget. And you can stop me at any point and be like, okay, Shayla, that's enough of your story. Let me ask you some questions.
Your story is your story. You want to...
But I remember the day that he got reunified with his dad. And well, let me back up a second. When I realized that it was moving towards reunification, I was like, man, I don't want to lose this child forever.
Right.
This is a child that I've invested in. I'm the only mom he's ever known. Yeah. We've had him since he was 5 days old. We're the only family he's ever lived with. Yeah. So really, this isn't reunification. This is actually like a placement. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like in a different family.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that it was going in that direction, I said, man, what can I do to build a relationship with his dad? So this dad knows, man, I'm not here to try to take your son or to fight against you. Like, I'm here to walk alongside of you, to support you and to be with you, because I didn't want to lose this child forever. And so I did everything that I could to make him feel like I was his advocate and his supporter.
Ally,
Yes. We went and looked at daycares together. We, did all of that kind of stuff. And so when he was reunified, I remember that court date, and my husband went to court, and I was just driving around with our son. And then when they came out, they came down with his dad. And I remember all of the caseworkers and the guardian ad litem and all of these people are walking out together. And his dad gets in our car, and we drive him to their house with all of their stuff, help him get set up at his house, do all of that. And it's like those caseworkers were like, what is going
it's
on?
That's not the norm, unfortunately.
No. But it again, for me, went back to, I want this dad to know, like, if ever you need anything, like, I'm here to be your support and your ally.
Right.
But meanwhile, inside, I am broken. You know, like, I could cry right now going back to that moment of just realizing that this is loss. Yeah. And it messed me up for quite a while, and my husband even probably more so than myself. And you just get to this place where it's almost like the death of a child or a loss. It's like something that is just feels like it's gone forever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I remember walking through that and just being at such a loss of going, how do I even start to deal with this?
Yeah.
Like, I have this child that's been here for 18 months. I've seen him since he was a newborn baby. I've helped bring him to this point. And now the next day, he's just gone.
Not there. Yeah.
What do I do? Who am I? Like, God, how could you let this happen? Kind of, you know, kind of space.
Yeah. I mean, what was it like when you dropped him off with his dad at their new place, and you left, and now you're the one saying goodbye, and you're the one going back to a home where there is no child anymore, where there once was a child, and you're experiencing walking through the house where he, you know, was learning to walk or crawling or, you know, mumbling first words. And what was that like? What was it like walking through the house where he once was, and he's no longer there in that moment? You know, you find the little reminders. I've heard a lot of people talk about, you know, there's the pacifier that you find behind the couch, and months later, and now it's bringing everything back up again. Is that something that you experienced too?
Absolutely. I think it was the most, I would say that one of the most painful things was walking back into that house. And, you know, my husband and I actually left his room set up for probably months, and we just wouldn't even go in there because it was just too hard to face. Right. Like all of the memories and all of the things, and, you know, and so I think there were things that we just left for a long time because we just didn't have the emotional ability to deal with that because we were just broken. Yeah. And at a loss. I mean, my husband had an extreme emotional breakdown. Right. And like to the point where he was, you know, out of work for 8 to 10 weeks, and just like, because not knowing how to process all of this stuff emotionally. Yeah.
Did you find that there was a lot of support in the child welfare system from different agencies or organizations or just former foster moms? Was it easy for you to find support, or was that something that you had to kind of piece together yourself and navigate through?
I feel like it was one of the most difficult things.
To find that support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I feel like it should be something easy because so many people have walked through it. Yeah. But for some reason, I was just at a loss, and I couldn't find what I really needed. And I think, I mean, that's partially where foster change came out of. Correct. A little bit, because there was just, you're walking through such a season of grief, and it's like, who do I go to? Who do I talk to? Who understands this? Yeah. And maybe it was just, some of it might just be because like everything is so foggy in that moment. You don't even have the wherewithal to seek that help and support. That's you don't have the energy to even look for it. Yeah. And so it's like, if there was a place that was like, hey, this just happened, here's how I can support you. Yeah. Like that
someone who might have been through it that knows more or less what might help you.
We know you're getting reunified. Like, let's set this up, because I was just at such an emotional loss that I couldn't do. It was like being just stuck or paralyzed. Right. And you just don't have the energy or ability to go seeking something that you so desperately need. Right. And I mean, luckily my husband and I had some pretty great connections with some pastors and people that saw that piece in us and did say, hey, we want to connect you with a good counselor. And that made all the difference. Yeah. Yeah. Because in processing through all of what happened with the counselor, they were able to, I don't know what the right word is, like validate, I think, the feelings that I was feeling, because I was like, oh, this shouldn't be this painful.
There's a lot of in the child welfare system, from what I haven't ever experienced placement loss because the first placement we got was our son, and then we took his, and obviously those were now adopted and finalized, and so we haven't ever experienced the placement loss. But that being said, in the child welfare system and the foster care system, speaking with other foster parents, our case was tracking towards reunification for the longest time, and so you hear people talk and tell you all the time, this is what you signed up for.
Yeah.
You know, the goal is always reunification. The goal, isn't it great that they're going to go back? And you think, well, yes, I'm not adversarial to reunification. That's not where I'm at, but I'm just sad for myself. Like I've given so much to this child that it's okay if I grieve the loss a little bit. And there's not really a lot of permission for foster parents losing a placement to grieve, because people around you go, well, this is why I could never do it.
Yes.
This is what I'm talking about.
Yes.
This is what you signed up for. You have a child-sized hold. Just take another kid. Keep moving. Soldier on, right?
Absolutely. But then
I hear
it's
a
like,
lot of that.
It's like with the kids, when that happens with kids, you have trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. Like your life is really difficult at that point. You don't know how to process through things, but that's exactly what's happening on this side of things. Is you experience trauma, and if I just try to power through it, like there's so many things that are underlying there that are just building on each other. And I think when you enter into foster care and you become a foster parent, so many people feel like this is something that I'm called to do, that I feel like this is something that is like a passion of mine and all of those things. And I felt that way. I felt like, man, God has asked me to do this. I'm called to do this for this specific moment. And so I think I didn't feel like, man, this shouldn't be so painful if this is something I'm called to, or this is something that, you know, and it really was. Yeah. Something that was hard and painful, and that I needed counseling and I needed to process through those things. And
I feel
it
like
made me
that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think too many people think, well, I should just be stronger and I should just get through this, and but that's not like it. Like, it's okay to want help.
I feel like feeling grief doesn't make you weak, though. I feel like seeking appropriate help is actually the stronger thing to do in this situation.
Absolutely.
Because if you want to be able to pour yourself into more kids and be able to affect more change, you have to be able to seek help when necessary and appropriately. And I feel like in the child welfare system, and this particular case where you're talking about the loss of a placement and kind of grieving that, I think that that's something that's a little more taboo. And I think that is it's a little more difficult to find the help and the resources to kind of get you through that, because like you're saying, powering through trauma, that's not really a thing though. Like people think that it is, and it's kind of not. You need to be able to have correct. And then you lose a piece of yourself and you don't ever get it back. It's just a strange thought to me that you can power through it and then still be able to continue helping other kids when you're not whole yourself. So how can you wholly help a child if you're not taking care of yourself? And I think that that's something that I admired that about your journey, because walking through it with you and seeing the different seasons, it was encouraging to know that even as pastors, right, you guys are able to appropriately turn around and say, I'm a pastor, but at the same time, like, I need help too.
I'm not okay.
Correct. And it's okay to not be okay. And I think normalizing that is something that's really important. I know to you guys, but also to me and the child welfare system. And I know that I've had my struggles. Again, I haven't gone through the grief of it, but I know even just like getting closer to where it was going to be reunification, I was already like, you know, and for me, obviously my kids did not go back because it was not safe. It wasn't safe. It wasn't in their best interest. Their story's a little bit different as far as what they would have been going back to in that whole situation. And so for me, I know something that I struggled with is walking through the system and seeing, okay, we're going to be back to reunification. And I'm going, well, wait, hold on. It's not safe. Okay. And then being in this situation where I felt almost adversarial to reunification, but then I'm actually in the best interest of the child. But then I have a great relationship with Biomom and I love her. But it was just so nuanced and so colorful and so dynamic. And I was like, just in this place of like, I don't know what to feel or how to feel it. Yeah. And so I can't imagine like if they had gone back and I was left like, wow, we really messed that one up, because it would have been a big mess up. And thank God that didn't get messed up and that the kids are where they are right now and they're safe. But do you think it helps to know when they go back that they're in a safe situation? Like, I know for you have a great relationship with Dad and you still see your son in that, you've got a good thing going on, which is not the norm, unfortunately. No. I know it's not. But do you think that helps in processing through the grief, knowing that your kid is safe?
I think yes and no. Yes, absolutely. In the fact I can see him.
Yeah.
I can like put eyes on him, hands on him. I can hear him. I can all of those things. So I know he's doing well.
Right.
And it puts my heart in this place where I'm like, okay, he's safe. He's loved. He's going to be okay.
Right.
You know, but then on the flip side, there's this, it continually reminds me of that loss.
Yeah.
You know, like when I see him or interact with him and like he'll come stay with us for a couple days, but then I have to bring him back.
Yeah.
It like draws up all of those things again where it's like, oh man, this just feels like taking me back to that day where I dropped my little boy off. You know?
Now you're back at home without him. Does that ever get easier when you see him and then you say goodbye again?
I think it's yes and no again.
Yeah.
Like there is a place because I think yes, because I know he's okay. He's progressing. Like he looks good. He's eating good. You know, all of those things. Like I know he is adorable. Like all of those things are met.
Right.
But sometimes when I drop him off, if he's kicking and screaming and saying, no, I don't, you know, like because my house is fun. And, you know, they're just different aspects of it. It's like, oh, I don't, and I'm like, I'm the only mom he's ever known. So I'm like, I don't want him to think his mommy just leaves him all the time and then doesn't come back for like, you know, so those pieces are weird to me, but I think for me, one of the greatest things that happened in counseling, and for me, it was faith-based counseling, but I think it can be the case, you know, with anybody, but in that counseling session, I remember the counselor taking us through this progression of just kind of helping us break out of that grief a little bit and find tools that when we do go back into that fear, or that doubt, or that worry, or whatever things that we could do to help bring ourselves out of that. And one of those things for me was just having this visual of like God caring so much about my son that it was first and foremost his, and that his purpose and identity and all of those things weren't limited to my last name, that God could have a purpose in bringing him out of whatever situation that he was in to make a difference and an impact. And that was just how God wanted to use him. And so he took us through this process of being able to just visualize like my son in God's hand. And every time I get worried or fearful or any of those things, I just say to myself, God, I trust you with him. Like I might not trust his circumstances. I might not trust, you know, the situation he's in. But okay, God, I trust you because I know you care more than anybody, and I'm just going to trust you with him.
Right.
And so when I bring myself back there every single time, I'm like, okay, that's all I can do.
Yeah.
You know?
That's to me, that's the worst feeling. And one that you experience a lot in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's one of the biggest deterrents for new foster parents is that feeling of helplessness. Yep. Like you feel almost powerless to help, you know, because I've had caseworkers sitting at my dining room table telling me things that I know are factually incorrect, or that you're in court and they're saying things where you're like, I've been called on by the judge, like, foster mom, is there something you need to say? Yes, actually.
Everything they just said was incorrect.
Not correct. And so it's that feeling of helplessness and going, okay, there's not much I can physically do. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of like, it's almost like you're sitting on your hands like, all right. But visualizing that God is so good and he's sovereign in all of this. And just knowing that as much as you love them, he loves them more.
Yep.
That's something that has brought me a lot of peace in all of this, because the system is so broken and they don't always get it right. And I know in your situation, it's a little different because even though they got it right in the sense that he's safe and he's well loved and taken care of, and it's, you know, a story of redemption for this dad and for this son, it still hurts and it's still hard and it's still, you still have to rely on, okay, but God loves him more as much as I love him and his bio dad loves him, and you know, your husband, like, it's as much as he's loved by us, he's loved more by him.
Yep.
And I think that that's a beautiful picture. And it's definitely helped me through hard times too.
And I think when you go through these processes, there's so much that's uncontrollable. Oh, there's so much that's out of your hands. There's so much that you don't agree with. There's so, like, it is overwhelming the amount of things that are beyond your control. And so in the process, for me, I was just like, okay, there's all these things, the majority I cannot control, but what can I control? You know, like I can control my ability to be a resource to this dad.
Yes.
If you have the opportunity to build a relationship with the parent, do it. Like,
agree.
Support
Completely
them, whether
agree.
you agree with what they're doing, whether you like who they are, whether if you can build some sort of a relationship, I think that brings a little bit of peace on
for the
other
kids
side
too. I think it's at the end of the day, it's about the kids. That's what we're in it for. You become a foster parent to help the kids, and yes, the bio family, and yes, the parents, but first and foremost, the kids. You know, I agree. I've built a relationship with my kid's biological mother. We have a great relationship now, and I've said it from the beginning, and it still remains. I don't know how I can love my kids wholly and completely and yet deny such a big part of who they are and where they come from. I don't know how that works. I don't know what that looks like to do that. And just, you know, you don't have to bring someone completely into the fold or completely into the mix or even necessarily trust everything that they say in order to love them and care for them and build a relationship with them. There could be healthy boundaries. There can be, you know, different expectations and rules to a relationship, and that's perfectly okay because it matters for the kids. So where I have a relationship with bio mom right now, my kids do not, and that's just where we're at. In the future, we'll see what that looks like, but for now, that's kind of where we're at. And so I love that. I think that that's really important to build a relationship with the bio parents, not only because you can be a positive example and role model to them, because a lot of times there's a lack of knowledge or understanding in how to parent and how to do certain basic life skills that is required to raise children.
We're going to help his dad do his taxes next week.
Yeah. I mean, that's just part of it. It's just doing life together. I think that it's important. And it shows the kids like, hey, you're so loved that we come from different worlds, but we're able to come together for you. This is, we're in this for you because you matter so much. And I think that that's such a great picture for the kids to live and walk in too.
And I think the outcome is not always that you can have a great relationship with a bio parent. Or,
no, it's not always healthy.
And it's not always healthy.
Yeah.
So I think I would say to people that are processing through, or you're going through a reunification and you're about to experience a loss, is like, get help. Don't try to power through it. Don't try to, just push through. Find community, find a counselor. You can reach out to Foster Change. We can help connect you with people because there is so much freedom when you can process through all of those things and not just try to power through it.
Yeah.
And, one of our goals at Foster Change, I think, is to retain good foster families.
Absolutely.
And if we're going to retain good foster families, then as foster parents, we have to be healthy ourselves and process through those things. And our kids, like I'm not somebody that had kids in my family, but I know families that do, that their kids need counseling because their kids just experienced a loss of a brother or a sister that's been in their house, that they aren't emotionally stable enough to be able to process through those. And I can imagine kids in, a foster family, they're going, well, is that going to happen to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't experienced placement loss, but when it was tracking towards it and trending towards it, we started prepping the kids a little bit. And that was a question where they're like, well, hold on, wait a minute. And we're like, and explaining the differences and having those conversations is important. And and definitely biological siblings experience the things that we experience as biological as foster parents, as foster siblings. It's, you experience things as a foster parent and then they experience things as a foster sibling, and it's real and it's valid. And I think that it's important to give them, airtime too, to figure out and work through and process through their grief and their loss. That's so definitely very true.
So important. And I can't advocate for that enough because I know how much it helped me. And I think there's a stigma on counseling, or there's a stigma on getting help. And well, I'm weak or I'm this, but man, it takes so much strength to do that. And you're stronger when you come out.
Yes. Yes. I think it's definitely like, it's the reverse. It's the opposite. It's almost, sometimes that makes me kind of scratch my head and I'm like, well, but isn't it, as weak as you think you are, you're probably actually stronger for it. So I hear a lot of people saying, I could never be a foster parent because I could never go through the loss of a child. And you think, well, but see, you know that you would love that child enough and care about that child and invest in that child and pour yourself into that child. And that's exactly what that child needs. And there's counseling services available to you. And you can just tap into those resources and together we can get through this.
Yep.
There's a community of people that are so willing to support you, whether it's in your time of celebration because the system is getting it right. This kid is going back to a beautiful, amazing place, but you're still on the flip side. You're at home and now you're empty.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That juxtaposition of like, I'm happy for this child to be back with his, family, but at the same time, like I feel empty inside.
Yep.
There's a group of people who can come around you and say, I see you and what you're feeling is valid. And you're not a horrible person for feeling that way. You're a human and you're experiencing emotions and let's get through it together.
And
right?
I wouldn't, honestly, I would not change what I went through ever. Like all of that pain was so worth the relationship that I have with that child and now the relationship that I have with his dad. Like I believe that the course of that child's life will change because of the investment that my husband and I had and the emotional investment. And if I have to go through that pain and that difficulty so that that child can have a better future, regardless of the outcome for me, like that's worth it.
So good.
That's worth it. And I think if there are people that are like, I couldn't do foster care because of loss. No, you can because of what that child gains.
Right. It's more about the gain than it is about the loss. That's true.
Yep.
It's good perspective.
Yep. Yeah.
So what would you say to anybody experiencing loss, a placement loss, who's struggling with, I should be better than this. This is what I signed up for, who's beating themselves up for feeling that emptiness when maybe their kid went back to something great or empty and their kid went back to something not great, or just like, what would you say to someone walking through that messy, complicated time of grief?
It's normal. First of all, I think a lot of us beat ourselves up and make ourselves feel like, man, I shouldn't be feeling like this or, whatever, I need to be stronger than this. But it's totally normal to feel at a loss or in despair or grief or any of those things. And again, I think it just goes right back to what we've been talking about, that you need to seek help, find an organization, find a counselor, find somebody that's walked through it before. Yeah. And just be able to process with someone. Because I think that's the biggest thing is I just need somebody to talk through this with and to be real with and to walk through my emotions and my feelings, or at least to have somebody that understands. Yeah. Because you can talk to people about it and people don't get it if they haven't walked through it. Yeah. And, people mean the best when they're like, oh, I totally understand. No, you don't. Yeah. You haven't walked through this.
You don't get it.
But I found so much life and healing from having that counselor and then having people in my life that were walking through that with me and reminding me, Shayla, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be having all of these emotions and this anger and this fear and all of these things. Like, you're normal. You're a human. Right. You've experienced loss. So let's walk this out together. So I would say, please don't be scared to reach out for help or counseling or any of those things, because for me, I'm a stronger person in every area of my life because I did that. Yeah. I'm not, of course, there's a little piece of me sometimes that feels like it's missing when that child is gone. But at the same point, like, I'm so much more whole because I allowed myself to go through that healing process. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, total sense. Yeah. I think that's it's good perspective. And I think that is like absolutely true. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to heal in order to move on and give back to either more kids or to continue to invest and have a relationship with the child that you lost. You have to be able to handle that emotionally, and that requires healing and building and strengthening. It's like when you work out, your muscles have to heal and then they're stronger. And so if you don't allow yourself to heal properly, then you're not going to be able to continue.
Absolutely.
To do it, so.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your sharing your journey. We hope this helps. Reach out with any questions, comments, concerns. We're here to help you guys. And if you are experiencing a placement loss, please don't hesitate to reach out. We would be happy to help you walk through this grief. We're totally here for you guys. And thank you to Shayla. Yeah, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our podcast. And if you'd like more information on how you can get plugged in with our mission and our vision, as well as get support services, you can check us out on the web at fosterchange.com.